So this is Acts 17, the scripture for the 9th of June. Now at this point in Paul's evangelizing, you might have discerned a pattern. Paul, along with his traveling companions, enter a city. Paul preaches the message of Jesus Christ at the synagogue first. Now, after several Jewish folks show interest, a band of Jewish religious leaders or other civil leaders, per the instruction of some Jewish folks with some power, get Paul and his companions removed from the city after clamoring for it with the civil authorities. It happens in Thessalonica also at the beginning of this chapter, and we get the claim that's made to the civil authorities: these people who have been turning the world upside down have come here also. I think that there's no other good way of summarizing the gospel. It's something that turns the world upside down. That's what Jesus meant when he said the first will be last and the last shall be first. That's what John the Baptist meant when he hearkened back to the prophet Isaiah to say that, the mountains will be made low and the valleys will be raised up. This is what the message of Jesus Christ does, is it turns the world upside down. Now in Rome, whenever the army would liberate, I guess you could say, would liberate a city, the credo would be announced: Caesar is Lord. And this was something that the early church took immediate aim at with their confession that Jesus is Lord. No other lord could rival Caesar in Roman doctrine. And so the charges that are brought against Paul and his traveling companions, that they're talking about another king named Jesus, these are a big deal to the Roman authorities. They're high crimes. And they're also true to what our faith teaches. There are some times when our faith, even if we try and keep church and state separate, there are some times when our faith gets political. Because there's nothing in all of creation that Jesus Christ doesn't point to and say, mine. In the crucifixion, when Jesus died for us and spread his arms out, he encompassed all of creation. Not just our personal lives, but our interpersonal lives as well. And so Jesus demands our faithfulness, even if that means saying or doing something that's political. We answer to Christ alone, not civil authorities. We'll get into that a little bit more in several months when we hit Romans 13, so be looking for that. Now, after going through the same song and dance in Berea, the trouble incited by the folks from Thessalonica ends up separating Paul from Silas and Timothy. Paul decides to go on to Athens and leaves Silas and Timothy behind to catch up with them at a later date. Initially, upon getting to Athens, he's not sure how to share the good news. And so, as he's thinking, Paul does something magnificent. So, I really want to make sure you don't miss this. Despite being deeply distressed in his first tour around the city, when he sees all these idols, Paul looks carefully at the idols of the Athenians. Because an idol is a reflection of what your deepest desire is. We don't erect idols in the same way out of stone in this day and age, but we do see the people who are obsessed with the biggest house, with seeming wealthy, the people who are obsessed with the nicest cars, because what you love you're going to pursue and you're going to erect some sort of memorial to, whether that's something symbolic or whether that's just going about your daily life. Paul knows this, and then when he sees that there's an idol to an unknown God, that he knows that betrays a longing to engage with the divine wherever it may be found, and a dissatisfaction for some of the gods that were available to the Athenians. So Paul starts his preaching in a place where the people in the Areopagus are willing to join him. He's able to begin on common ground, and that's really important. In his preaching, he also shows a fluency with Athenian poetry, making him have some street cred in the eyes of those in the Areopagus. He quotes two Greek writers as he sets forth his argument. Now, having searched for a way through the last two missionary journeys to preach the gospel to the Gentiles, Paul here discovers, or it's shown that he's discovered, the power of a shared truth, the power of a shared story. Several of the members of the Areopagus want to hear more. And while the children of Israel have a special relationship with God, I think what Paul exposes is that every culture has built-in ways to interact with the divine. Thanks be to God. I wonder, how does your faith turn the world upside down? That's all for Acts chapter 17. Tomorrow, the 10th of June, we'll be looking at Acts chapter 18. May God bless you in your reading of Scripture.